My name is Rod Beadle. I am the Executive Director of a small NGO called Engineers in Action. We do work in Bolivia and Ecuador, mostly with water and sanitation systems. I currently live in DeForest, Wisconsin, which is a town just north of Madison, and I was born in Newfoundland, Canada, but I don't really consider myself from there because I was a military brat, and we've lived and moved all over the world. I went to school at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where I got my Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in 1984. And I also hold a master's degree in International Public Service from DePaul University in Chicago. Well, originally I wanted to be a veterinarian, but a C+ in advanced biology convinced me that might not be a good idea. I was good at math and science other than biology, so that just naturally drew me to engineering, I think. I chose civil engineering because I like to build things. I knew that I didn't want to work in an office environment. I wanted to get outside, and I really enjoyed some of the larger scale projects. I had seen some of the big dams and locks and dams along the Mississippi when I was growing up. So yeah, I was just drawn to civil engineering. Plus it was a heck of a lot easier than electrical engineering. Yeah, when I graduated, I initially went to work for the Corps of Engineers, mostly because I thought I would work on some of those large dam projects. What I didn't realize was that the dams had already been built and they really didn't have a lot of great big projects to work on. So I stayed there for about 2 years. Got a little tired of working for the federal government, knew that wasn't really where I wanted to go with my career, and so I went to work for a couple of consultants in the Chicago area. Really enjoyed that. I like the challenge of working on lots of different things. I enjoyed project management, and I especially enjoyed business development and business management. So much so that I decided to start my own firm. I was 29 years old. Our youngest daughter had just been born. Might not have been the smartest decision, but it worked out. Took a couple of years, but I ran the firm called Engineering Resource Associates in the western suburbs of Chicago for about 25 years. 10 years ago, I got interested in doing international development work also, and so I started to work with a couple of organizations on a volunteer basis, Engineering Ministries International and Engineers Without Borders, and really enjoyed that. Felt it was a great way to apply a lot of the basic principles I had learned in civil engineering and had not necessarily applied in my career, and also got involved in their Engineering Ministry International's disaster response group right after the Haiti earthquake. And so over the last 8 or 9 years I've done a lot of work as a disaster response team member or a DART member, and mostly in water sanitation and hygiene or WASH field. So a couple of years ago I decided that I wanted to devote the balance of my career to working in the developing world, and so that's when I went back and got my master's degree, and I sold my firm after 25 years to some key employees. In fact, they'll tell you they're doing a lot better now without me. And I took a position with Engineers in Action as their executive director. I chose them and they chose me because I wanted to work for a smaller NGO and help build something, and I really like their model, and so for the last 2 years I've been doing that. What we're working on right now at Engineers in Action, we have 2 offices, one in Bolivia, and we're opening a new office in Quito this year. We have 30 active programs in Bolivia. They're all community-based programs, water systems, sanitation, playgrounds, bridges, infrastructure programs, and they're all pretty special. I have the greatest job in the world. I mean, I go down to Bolivia, go out and visit these communities. I get to see our partner teams. A lot of times, Bridges of Prosperity, Engineers Without Borders, and other groups come down and work with us, and I get to see them in action and learning and interacting with the communities. They're all great. In Ecuador, we have 8 programs this year, so we're really happy about that too. So. I was born into a Lutheran family. Both of my parents were believers, and felt it was important that we were brought up in the Lutheran tradition. As I mentioned, we moved a lot as a military family, and my father was deployed a lot, including going to Vietnam for a year. And so I think that our faith really tied our family together in otherwise an unstable outside environment, and made us a very stable family, a very, very close family. I'm still Lutheran. My wife is a Lutheran minister, has her congregation up in DeForest, Wisconsin, and I like that you refer to it as a faith journey, because I really feel that my faith has been a journey or a walk with Christ. I can point to specific instances and moments that some people would call born-again moments, but I really think more important than a born-again moment is just a lifetime of conversation and relationship with Christ, a journey. Yeah, my faith is a very important part of my work as an engineer. When I came out of school and started working as a civil engineer, to be honest, when I was in school, I didn't realize how important our work was and how we influence the health and well-being of so many people. And if we do our job well, we make everyone's lives better. I've always felt a calling to help people, especially people in need. And I feel that my work as an engineer has enabled me to do that, and that's an outgrowth of my faith. Yeah, actually there are lots of them, but one that really comes to mind is my experience working in Liberia during the Ebola outbreak. I was asked to go over and help build an Ebola clinic in Liberia. During the outbreak, it was around the time that the hysteria was just getting started and starting to really build in the United States around that issue. And normally when I've gone on deployments, disaster deployments, I've felt a lot of support, and I've gotten a lot of support from friends and family and others. People are genuinely happy that I'm going to Haiti after the earthquake or the Philippines after the typhoon. But in this particular case, people weren't so happy. They were angry, and they didn't just take it out on me, they took it out on my family. And I went with a sense of calling, but I didn't feel like I was at all prepared to go. I was worried myself about what would happen when I was there. And when I got there, instead of being sent to work to provide WASH support on a clinic outside of the Ebola zone, they were short on personnel. And they needed someone to go into the epicenter of the breakout zone and build a clinic there. And I had to go by myself because we didn't have anyone else to go with me. I was very worried about that. I was staying on a hospital compound in the middle of the Ebola zone. That worried me. The site, when I got to it, where we were building the clinic, was just a disaster. And there were people coming and going. I didn't know who had the disease, who didn't. It was just a really tough experience. And the first night I was there, I was in my guest house, sleeping on a bed that I had no idea who had been on before me. I did flip the mattress, just in case. And the electricity went out. And so it's Africa dark. I can't see my hand in front of my face. I'm scared. I am overwhelmed. I feel like I've gotten myself into a situation that I can't get myself out of, and I might not live through this. And I would like to say it was a prayer, but it was more just exasperation. I just said, God, what am I doing here? And he spoke to me, and God told me that, Rod, I did call you here, and I didn't call you here to get Ebola. I didn't call you here to get attacked. I didn't call you here to die. I called you here to build a clinic. So suck it up and build the clinic. He didn't really say suck it up. But he did talk to me, and I felt this profound sense of peace about, I knew there was a reason I was there, and the reason was to build that clinic. And I decided to take all of the worries that had literally frozen me with fear and give those over to God and let God worry about that. I was going to worry about building the clinic. And the next day I got up, and that's what we did. Over the course of a few weeks, we built a clinic that's still operating there today. Yeah, as an engineer, I found that you have an incredible ability to alleviate pain and suffering that people are experiencing during very difficult times, especially in disaster response. Regardless of the nature of the disaster, if it's an earthquake, if it's a flood, if it's man-made, if it's a war or a refugee situation, it always seems to affect the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable people, the worst. We all laugh about when the tornado goes through, the first thing they do is they show the trailer park. But the truth is, they show the trailer park because that's the most vulnerable population. Those are the people that are most likely to be hurt. And the same thing happens in international disasters, especially in the developing world. And so often when you're deployed to those zones as an engineer, you're working with people who are experiencing the lowest of the lows of their lives. It might not be the worst thing that's ever happened to them, but often it is. And you're able as an engineer to do something significant to alleviate their pain and suffering. I just think that's an awfully cool thing, and that flows through faith, I think. Yeah. I feel blessed that I've been able to help people in those ways and even save lives sometimes. Well, I wish I'd practiced my faith in the day-to-day. To be honest, I'm just as susceptible, if not more susceptible, than many people to all of the other noises and considerations. And when you run an engineering firm or you run a nonprofit, you're always going and you're always worried about this and that. And I don't always take the time to listen to the voice of God or even to commune with God on a daily basis. I wish I did, and I should. I think that, and I hope that my faith shows through my actions, and even without necessarily concentrating on it as much as I should, that I live my life in a way that conveys that, but I wish it was more daily. Well, I would definitely tell you that you can make a huge difference in the world, and that you need to listen to God's voice, and if He's calling you into this kind of work, know that you have the capacity to really change people's lives, to improve people's lives, not just overseas, but here domestically also. I mean, I'm really proud of a lot of the things that my firm did over the 25 years as a consultant. But you have to listen to God's voice if that's where He's calling you or not. I would say, kind of building upon my last answer, I would say that for me in my life, I've always felt that God is always having that conversation with me. God is always talking to me. I might not always be talking back to Him or listening. For such a great big guy, He has this little tiny voice and He whispers. And so all the other things that get in the way, all the noise, keeps us and keeps me from listening to what God is really telling me to do. And I would say as a young person considering what they want to do with their career and where they're being called to go, that I would really counsel you to just remove the noise. Once in a while, just sit in silence, like I was in that room in Liberia. I thought it was a curse that all these things had been taken away from me, but it was really a blessing. He was pulling everything away and letting me know that the things I thought I relied upon, I don't need to rely upon, because He's still there and He's still talking to me. And I would advise young people to do the same thing. Not go to Liberia, but commune with God and just in silence and just listen to what He says rather than what you want to say all the time. And He'll lead you maybe in a direction like civil engineering.